Hi, this is Anubhati, and we are here at Spinnaker Summit in San Diego. And today we have with us Edgar Magana. You are a software architect at Salesforce. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's try to understand why and when Salesforce decided to use Spinnaker. What problem were you facing at that point, and when was it?
There are so many technologies of Salesforce, right? So many applications. And also as a company, we grow, we acquire other companies, and all of them, they have their own processes, their own CI/CD process, right? So what we wanted to achieve is to have a tool, specifically an open source tool that we can extend to try to have an homogeneous set of deployments for all these applications, right? Try to have one strong architecture that we can put behind the new applications, the rollout, the patches, the grade, etc. So this is when we did a little bit of research out there. Salesforce believes in open source. We found the Spinnaker, and that's when we started our journey with a simple POC.
In addition to being open source, what are the values Spinnaker brought to the organization? How it freed your engineering resources to focus on something else, or it offered, you're a different engineering team because you're a big company, they're different engineering team. They're kind of reinventing the wheel again and again with their own scripts. So can you talk about the impact of Spinnaker on the whole engineering teams within Salesforce?
So first of all, Spinnaker is super extendable, and Spinnaker already talks to multiple clouds, right? So we wanted to have the opportunity to explore a tool that will give us that opportunity. So we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, but now we have a tool that if we want to do or try on deployment in one cloud, we can actually do it. In another cloud, we cannot do it. If we cannot try it in a cloud that is not supported for the Spinnaker, we have the empowerment to actually write the code, advocate for that code with the community, look for feedback, and actually make it something that is officially upstreamed, and then we can just put it back into our own repos and actually make it happen. So that level of flexibility, we couldn't find it in any other CD system out there. Besides, we saw that the Spinnaker community was growing, right? It's 2 years now. We saw that there were so many people joining the Seattle Summit last year. Some of the folks from the team were attending, and they were impressed with what was happening. So we said, this is a good opportunity. And we want also to have the opportunity for our engineers to involve with the community, right? We didn't want to rebuild tools that are already there. So Spinnaker is one thing, but also everything that you put around Spinnaker, it's needed to make it efficient, right? During the Spinnaker Summit, we were talking about the production readiness, security requirements, and all those things are something that we believe we can contribute, especially with our use case, the number of applications, the scale of the application, all those kind of things that we believe that are going to be very welcome in the community.
For how long have you been using Spinnaker?
Well, it started as a POC last year.
So it's relatively new.
Yes.
What was one of the driving factors that you were fine with it? One, that it was battle tested at Netflix because it was something internally used, just like Kubernetes was used at Google, or that it was an open source project, or that it was going to a foundation?
Actually, a little bit of the two first, because the foundation thing came later. First of all, yes, we knew the journey of Netflix. Everybody knows about it. It's very well known. And when they open source Spinnaker, that was super interesting to see everything that is still running in Netflix is back up or delivered via Spinnaker. So that was something that for sure got our attention. And the second, the open source part, right? I just go back to the point that having the ability to see what you are running, right? To open it up, to see the code, to scan it for security vulnerabilities. And we found security vulnerabilities, and we're working with the community to solve them. Being part of a foundation is something that actually came later after our POC, and that we started getting more engaged with the community. But we are very happy that happened. When you have a foundation behind it, you guarantee that you will have the mechanism and the process to enlarge the community, right? Some of the things that I noticed in Spinnaker, one thing is to have open code, and the other thing is open source. For me, the difference is like I write code. It works for my use cases, and then one day I just put it in GitHub, and for me that's open code. But when you put a community around it, you have approvals or reviewers from different companies. You put a governance around it, documentation to contribute, to onboard, etc. That's when you make it open source, and we saw that happening with the Spinnaker. So that's another check mark that we really like it.
As new users like Salesforce are embracing Spinnaker, what it also means is the reason why Netflix developed Spinnaker is different than why you want to use it. And as more such users come in, they may come with their own expectations, because they want that functionality or that functionality. So how do you see Spinnaker community is trying to, first of all, stick to their own goals while also enabling new users to come in and do whatever they want to do? Because Netflix will be worried if you guys are taking it way far away from what they intended to do with that.
That's a very good point, right? It's funny that you asked that question, because today during the keynote, I have a slide that I was saying that we don't want to be only followers, we want to be leaders. That means that we want to push for features that obviously it's something that we care at Salesforce, right? But another bullet point in the same slide was about like we respect the community, and we are expecting the same from other companies. And the mechanism to get there is via the special interest groups, talking about the specific topics in that. So if we want to fix something in security, there is a SIG for security. If we want to talk about like, let's say that we want to go crazy, deprecate the version 1 for the Kubernetes driver, that is a place where you talk about those kind of things and you share it with the community and you put strong arguments to get there. So this is not a Netflix decision, a Google decision, a Salesforce decision. This is a community decision. Actually, with time, as the community matures, the engineers who are doing these contributions, say they're arguing via code, via POCs, etc., they ended up disassociating a little bit from the company. They ended up being kind of like full-time developers with the agenda that the community drives instead of the just the company interest. I've seen other cases where vendors or enterprise companies are behind pushing for features and ended up not being the best thing for the open source. The best way to avoid those kind of things is to have a very heterogeneous ecosystem of companies, users, operators, and vendors around it, and also the SIGs. Go back to having a good governance around Spinnaker will make that to happen.
As you're using Spinnaker and a lot of other open source technologies, how are you contributing back? How involved are you with the Spinnaker community, and a lot of other communities?
Oh, that's a great question, right? So I can mention another one, like for instance, OpenStack, right? We have some OpenStack deployments at Salesforce, and we have people who were at a certain point part of the core contributors. Now they are just reviewer contributors of the open source. So the way we engage with the community is in very different aspects. The first one, we are users mostly, right? Operators. So we put Spinnaker to run, we put a load on it, and we start discovering things that the other developers couldn't find it out because maybe the use case is different, the load, the stress, the performance stress is different. So the first level of contribution is reporting bugs, triaging bugs, and helping to solve it. Immediately after that, if we can find the way to actually fix the bug, we do it. So that's contribution in the code open source. The third one is configuration. Maybe it's not a bug in a Spinnaker, but it's best practices how we configure one of the microservices, Cloud Driver, or maybe Redis configuration, or maybe it's MySQL, right? And what we're looking for is to have a forum where we can actually share our configuration with the community. And the fourth one, or the fifth one, it's all about sharing experiences of running Spinnaker in production, right? Creating, and actually during this Spinnaker Summit, we are proposing to create a new SIG called the Ops for operators, where we can actually exchange as simple as the scripts that we run to find out like orphan accounts or to clean up objects, as complicated as, I would like to see if my DRHA architecture actually will work the way that you will, planning to. If you already went through the process to get all that. So, for instance, in the summit, Snapchat did a wonderful job explaining how they move from a single failure architecture to a full HA mode architecture, super reliable. And if that works, why should I reinvent the wheel, right? So these kind of things is where we're trying to contribute.
Excellent. Salesforce, you have like engineering powerhouses. It may not be a very good question for you, but when it comes to open source, there are 2 or 3 ways, companies work. Either you build or you buy. In terms of Spinnaker, because I also feel that for any open source project, there has to be a commercial angle there as well. Otherwise, it will not sustain. Companies may, then because that will just become a pet project of companies. When the vendors come in, then they bring a lot of diverse use cases, because the open source users of a project are not that active. They fork it internally, they use it, and they push things. So, what role do you think vendors are playing in this space? You mentioned OpenStack, and OpenStack has a lot of distributions there. That market has matured now and is going in a different direction from the hype cycle. So coming back to Spinnaker, what role do you think that vendors play here?
Good question. So I use the word ecosystem, and that's the point, right? If you just have users, who's gonna do the code? If you just have developers, who's gonna use the code? If you don't have vendors, who's gonna support the economics about like creating these events, right? It's an ecosystem. So I think the role is you need to contribute to that ecosystem. You can play 1 or 2 roles. You can just be user, but make sure that you also have developers to do that. And the way I see the vendors, I think there will be a space for everybody, right? I never went through the business analysis or the market value about how much is around CD right now, but I'm pretty sure it's a good and a large market. And I'm pretty sure there will be companies that actually could invest in creating their own infrastructure to actually support their own CI/CD, and there will be companies that they cannot do it, right? And that's when the vendors fit perfectly with those kind of things, right? Another very interesting use case is for the vendors just to provide that extra support, right? Companies that are large, maybe at Salesforce, they can actually build their own engineering and manpower of empowerment to actually support whatever they need to support in production. But having that extra support for a moment of crisis, right? We have an outage. We don't want to go for the DR event because we know that that's going to create a lot of disturbance. But not to having that extra hands to actually go there and help us to troubleshoot or do something else. Maybe there's something that we're not seeing because we're so used to see it square, and maybe there are some circles there that we're missing, right? And that's when the vendors are going to play a very good part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, so we need all these components, for a very healthy community, for a healthy project. Only one cannot move it for a very long time. Okay. As Salesforce teams are involved with this project, what is the internal process you have when it comes to contributing to open source? Because contributing to open source means you have to also get legal teams involved, because you cannot touch a lot of software licenses. Sometimes they're using their email IDs. Sometimes you have to worry about CLAs. So can you talk quickly about it?
Sure. I mean, the good thing about being in a company like Salesforce is way mature in all these kind of processes. So basically, there is a legal team that takes care of review all the processes. And our internal software that we use to keep track to what we call the working items, we can actually create a working item for the legal team to review. Our team wanted to contribute to this open source. This is the licenses that they are doing. These are the Git repos. And the process kickoffs is very transparent for the developer. In my experience, when I went through that process for the Spinnaker contribution, it was so smooth, and I never get any level of frustration. That was great. So that is advantage, right? And Salesforce is one of those companies that, as long as we have all the check marks, they are very, very supportive for a contribution to open source.
Excellent. Now, before we wrap this up, I'm curious about your thoughts about where do you see Spinnaker going in 20? We cannot talk about 4 years from now because these technology, but next year, 2020, where do you see, what does the roadmap look like because it's an open source project?
Well, I clearly see the community growing in all directions. I clearly see more operators coming in, more people moving from POCs to development to production. I think most of the operators users right now, I'm done with the POC, I'm more into dev prod kind of step. So next year I see a lot of people joining, say, like, I moved from the dev pro to prod, and I've been running prod for these several months, and these are my results. This is what I am. So I'm going to expect a lot of that, and I also will expect more growing in the ecosystem of the vendors. I will see more companies like making connections. Well, now you're using these. How you can actually make your pipelines more efficient? How you can actually get your resources even more efficient? I'm pretty sure there will be more vendors interested to be part of the ecosystem. And in terms of new users, I can forecast, 10 times, 20 times more of the new users that we saw in this Spinnaker Summit. Just the momentum that we're having, I think we are in that curve that we start in the hyper grow, right? For maybe for the next 2 years, we cannot keep growing until we reach that, that level that all the open source community got, and then you get stable. So there are so many more things to get more mature. There are so more code that we can actually push out there. So that's what I think is going to happen in the next 1 or 2 years.
So do you think that Spinnaker is going to become to CI/CD what Kubernetes has become for orchestration, or Linux has become for servers?
Well, that's a tough one, right? It's a tough one because if you think about CI, right, we cannot deny that Jenkins is the thing. And if you have Jenkins, a lot of people will think like, why should I explore something else if I have Jenkins, right? And it's a valid point, right? So I think it's going to be a little bit of testing both to see which one makes more sense for you. I clearly see all these open source solutions to fight a little bit to see which one establishes a little bit more of ad hoc position in the community or in the operators worldwide. So I think it's too early to get to that point, but for sure it's going to be one of the open source projects. I don't see a closed version for the CD to actually make it all the way to be the, as you mentioned, the Kubernetes thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for Edgar for talking to me today, and I look forward to seeing you again at some open source event to talk about other open source projects that Salesforce is involved with. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.